Hello and welcome to the Risk Control Show. We're here with another sad episode of a mass shooting tragic incident last night in Baltimore. Matt, welcome, and
Howdy.
terrible to see you again today on this one. But we got to talk about it, and it's funny because a little while back we were we had a client. We're doing some. Oh, I got all blurred. There we go. We were doing the emergency preparedness, and they're like, we read this article from one of our competitors about active shooters and what happens more often, molestation, and we don't want to do the active shooter drill because we don't want blinds covering because we're more concerned about molestation and blah blah blah. Well, sure enough, first thing this morning, I got an email that said we're going to do the active shooter drills.
Yeah.
And good. Good because there's not a drill that you can do for molestations.
Yeah.
And we have to be smart enough to be able to deal with both of them. And again, here in Baltimore, 5 were wounded at Morgan State University. And I believe I was looking through here and what do you call it? Looking through, I'm just showing some images now, but as of noon, they were still looking for the suspect.
As far as I've been I have not seen any reports that they've located the suspect yet.
Yeah, and now an image just popped up. Funny, because we go back to should they have known about the potential for this? Did they practice? Did they know what's going on? And as I was going through there, I did a Google search and see if this one pops up again. There's a picture here of a Morgan State University shooting on November 19th of 2021.
Okay.
During the homecoming event, which this was what this was.
Yeah, that's exactly what this was. That's a little later in the year, but it's the same event.
Yeah, November 21.
Yeah.
So 2 years later, we have another one, right? And it begs the question, like, what was done for planning? How is this being handled? What measures are they taking in these types of circumstances? But again, my heart goes out to these 5 families that have children that were wounded in this incident.
Right.
And
right.
I don't even know what to say anymore, Matt. We've talked about this so many times. What's going to be the thing that slaps you in the face, knocks you across the head, that says this got to be a priority?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And we always talk about the fact that, yes, if you look at the numbers, it may look like it's going to be an extremely rare event. But what do we always say about these tragic events, Steve? If it happens to you, it's affecting your life and your community's life. It's a mark on you and your community's life for everybody's life, all the families, all the people around that community who are even ancillary attached to it are affected by that, or they will know someone who's directly affected by that. And it's not, it goes away in a year. It
hasn't gone away. They're still talking about Parkland. They're still talking about Vegas. They're still
I'm glad you brought up Vegas. I was about to say I have a friend, and I'm not going to say their names, but his wife was at the Vegas shooting.
Actually, we have a client. I just learned this recently when we were talking to one of our clients. We have a client whose son was actually impacted by a bullet that was fired during that Vegas shooting. They were at the concert.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were at the concert. The girlfriend covered him up, and luckily he lived.
It's incredible, isn't it? And to this day, I know my friend's wife is, and I'm not surprised by this, is deeply affected by that. By going through that, and I'm sure it's the same for same for the kid who got hit as well.
Don't we talk about it with Vietnam and PTSD?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, I mean, even you can go more recent. I mean, how many, there's been a lot of reports and talk about veterans coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and how
Yeah.
many of them are homeless now because they have PTSD, they have mental issues because of what they're going through, and obviously they were exposed on a much higher level than maybe one person, an active shooter, but still we're talking about the same sort of thing where we're talking about being around the imminent possibility of your own death. It's very difficult for anybody to deal with that and take that in, especially when you have no control over it.
Right.
It wasn't, it came at the agency of someone else. It came because someone was bullied. We mentioned bullying yesterday. Someone was bullied and decided to take it out in school, or someone is upset because they think that their wife is having an affair, so they go to their wife's workplace and shoot up the office.
Yeah.
It's things we can't control, but
Well,
deeply affect us.
that PTSD lasts forever. And,
Yes.
I threw out the Vietnam example because of the longevity of that in people that are still alive that served in that war. I had a friend in college, and they had a house out kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and it was around 4th of July or whatever. And my friend, his father was a Marine tracker. He was the guy that would sneak up on the enemy, get within 20 feet, call in the
Mhm.
coordinates, and then run out before everything got bombed and stuff.
Right.
And he had severe PTSD. And he always told my friend, like, don't ever shoot fireworks off or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So here we are. I didn't know this at the time, but he threw a firework at the house. We were out kind of on the side of the yard. And as soon as that thing went off, no, I mean, 10 seconds later, his dad comes flying out of the front door, firing round after round after round. We were in the dirt, off to the side, and luckily he caught himself in enough time. But my
Right.
buddy got a beating like you would never believe, because it triggered him. And
Yeah.
I see that in my, I've been talking about my dad a lot lately, but
That's all right.
I see
That's
that
all
in
right.
my dad too.
Mhm.
Sometimes, like when I first bought my house out here and moved to California, my father and my uncles came out to help me do some repairs and paint and that kind of stuff. And man, one night my uncle asked him about something in the war, and my dad got so triggered off that. And what you have to understand is, number one, my dad was out. He was a Air Force mechanic, and he was in Vietnam, and he was on the runway, and he was in a plane doing some work at night, and their base got attacked, and bullets are flying everywhere, and he's trying to get back. He got shot in the belly, and but a lot of his buddies died that night,
Okay.
and you know. Um, when my uncle asked that question, that was it. I mean,
Right.
he was angry, he was crying, he was this, he was that, he was all over the place. And so, if you go to a place, if you've been friends with people in school, and then all of a sudden they're shut up and horrifically shut up like this, of course it's going to affect you for the rest of your life. You know,
Yes, yes, it
and
absolutely does.
the sexual molestation is a terrible thing.
Mhm.
Also, and trying to pick between the two is very difficult
Yeah.
uh, to do. What we do know, though, is that sexual molestation typically happens to one person or two people or three people, and it's kind of confined and those kind of things. Whereas an active shooter hits a whole community,
Yeah.
and not, again, I'm not trying to weigh the two, but you got to do both.
Yeah.
You got to do both.
Got to protect from both.
Yeah,
got to take the steps
right
to address both issues. And yeah, look, just like everything, every single solution or problem that we tackle, the solution for that problem necessarily means that maybe we're not doing something else, or that might come at loggerheads. You know,
that's
with
the problem. Is it not?
You know,
is that not the problem? I mean, we go back. You know, you could do a whole book on me. Japan, hire people to be in charge of certain tasks and let them run with that. You know, we talk about not having enough jobs, this and that. Hey, hire someone to work on the emergency plans for the active shooter. Hire someone to work on the sexual molestation issues. Hire people and put them in charge of these programs and let them run with it. You know, you got to have people working on these. We can't keep doing more and more and more with less and less and less, because we get the gloss over, we get the surface level, we get the skin deep. That's it. We never get into the meat of the problem. We never get to the deep end of the ocean. We never solve anything.
Yep. Exactly. It's just, it's, you know, it feels like you talk about it as like, oh, you're always talking about your dad, or you're always talking about Japan. I feel like I keep coming back to the issues of society. Like, this is always like, this is what our society is. Our society is trying to pack so much life and activities and obligations and duties and a lot of non-essential stuff as well into a limited amount of time. So as a result, Steve, when we need to go deep into something like you're talking
it's
about,
impossible.
Yeah, it's almost impossible. We don't have the time, or we don't even have the focus, because our whole life we haven't been focusing on. We haven't done that deep focus. So even the process of trying to do that is completely foreign to us.
Right. And it's affecting every generation. I was on the phone with my mother yesterday. Yes, I'm a mama's boy. Hold it against me. I call my mom all the time. But my daughter and I went to Europe. We stopped at Sacré-Cœur, the church, because two things. We wanted to see the church, but we also wanted to see where John Wick died. And
that's exactly the first thing I thought. Oh, there you go. That's where John Wick got shot.
So I got my mom a medallion from there. I sent it to her. It took me a while to send it, but I finally sent it, and she's, oh yeah, I was looking that up, and I went down the rabbit hole of this other thing, another thing, and I never got back to what I was looking for at the church. And exactly, you go deep on something, and you're 75 areas of distraction away from the topic that you were on. You know, we see it all the time. I mean, it's we do it on the podcast, we do it in our policies, we do it in our life, we do it in our training. Try to stay focused, but there's so much information now that it's very difficult. And then we were talking about it yesterday with the emergency. Did you get your emergency beep today? I did.
Yes, I did. So, by the way, 11:18 a.m., not 11:20. Did you notice that too?
I did. So, but you know, you get these distractions, and it's distraction. What were we talking about? What do we do? You know, we got to get focused, folks, and we got to get focused on all these areas. And that means we got to hire some people. And Matt and I are happy to be hired. But
of course,
you know, we got to start, got to load up, and we got to tackle these things. Got to make it a priority, and we got to do it. And I don't know what else to tell you at this point. We've been over this so many times. Here again, this is another example. Take this example, use it for your benefit, and make sure that you're not finding yourself behind the podium talking about it, that you're in front of the class and training on it. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Practice, train, practice.
Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things that you want to have it in place and never have to use it, rather than not have it and have it happen to you.
Right. Well, with that, folks, check out all of our stuff out. We got the blog, Udemy, Dollar Training Club, which is our preferred training method. And
of course,
we got questions. Hey, we also got a 20% coupon for new clients if interested. We'll be driving 20% off our prices for you on our first project. Hey, you know what? Real quick, Henry Cular of Texas, the representative there, he was carjacked yesterday.
And, was it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they got his car, 3 people with guns. He's got a black belt in karate, and he chose the right action, which was to give up the car and escape with his life. But it's happening in DC now. It's talked about. We got gun issues here. We got criminal issues here, and we're not going to get away from it in the next 2 or 3 years. So we got to start. The best time to plant a tree is right now. And with that, we'll see you on the next episode of the Risk Control Show. Please take some time to do the active shooter and the sexual molestation training.